Alright, boom. Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome back, Gabe the Great. Back again with another video. First and foremost, let's get this out the way. Happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful mothers out there. I hope Mother's Day is a great day for all the moms who have a great relationship with their kids, who have done right by their kids. I really hope that, I typically don't like these holidays for multiple reasons that I'll talk about in this video, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate. But for those of you who had great moms, have great relationships with your mothers, I really hope that this is a great day for you guys. I hope your mother feels special. I hope you as a mom feel special. I'm going to the store right now to pick up some last minute things for the mother of my child. We're celebrating her today. So I hope Mother's Day is a great day for all the people that deserve it. Now, let's get to the topic of this video. First of all, I want to say, I don't even know what I want to say to the people who grew up with terrible moms on this day when it comes to, I don't know, like, for me, I'll share it. I've shared a little bit about my mom on this channel and about how we still don't have a good relationship. Me and my mom are on a first name basis right now. So I grew up with a single mom. I've never met my father. According to my mom, which I believe this is total BS and a total lie, she said that my dad put his hands on her and so she left him. I don't think that's true. And the reason why I don't think that's true is because, I'm gonna be honest, as I've gotten older and have built relationships with friendships with women, I don't know a single woman who left after the first cheat or beat. I don't know a single one. And my mom will go on to later get remarried, and later get married, and I saw what took place in that relationship, and it just doesn't line up with the story that she told me. So that's a real cause of animosity, because I think that a lot of times, I think what used to make me bitter about these days, and hopefully somebody watching this video can relate, these type of holidays used to make me bitter because I felt like two things. One, I felt like society has this like default thinking that because a woman has a child, she's a great mother. And it's like, no, children are not the result of merit, of morals. Children are the result of sex, right? Like, they're not the result of, oh, this woman was such an incredible person, and so, the Lord blessed her with child. No, she took some back shots. That's what happened. Took some back shots. Some guy left their seeds in her, and a few months later, baby came out. And I know that may sound like, you're taking like the wonder out of it, but sometimes we have to I talk about this a lot on this channel, taking a step back, because so often we don't understand that we're not actually interpreting reality. We are interpreting reality through our filter. And so I think for the longest time, this holiday made me bitter, because it was like, why do I have to celebrate somebody that I genuinely do not feel like was a mother to me? Not just the spankings, but just the pure neglect. There would be times where there'd be no food in the house, and she would leave the house. We'd both be in the house. She would go get her something to eat, like from McDonald's, and she would come back and say, oh, I didn't have enough money for you. And even at my young age of 6, 7, 8, the first thought that went to my head was, but I'm your child. What do you mean why would you go get food and not include like that? Even at, it broke my brain at a very young age, because when you're a child, you just have to accept that. And she would just say, oh, go in the kitchen and get some noodles or hot dogs. So now, like noodles are like my comfort food. Like, my girl know, we gotta have noodles in the house. And as I've gotten older, not only is it's my comfort food, but it's my comfort food from a trauma response. It's like, I need noodles in the house so that I know that if nothing else fails, I'll be able to eat that. You see what I'm saying? And so I still have that to this day, and I'm able to recognize it now, so I'm not like, oh no, there's no noodles in the house, I'm gonna die, you know. But for the longest, it's like I needed to have noodles in the house because of that trauma response, of all those times my mom would go to the store, get her food, and not bring me back any and just say, go make noodles. Or maybe, you know, I get in trouble at school, or maybe me and her have a disagreement, and I just want to plead my case. My mom was really good at ignoring. So she would just lay on the couch and just like watch TV through me. Like I would get like in her face like this, and she would just look past me. I'm like, this is after 6th grade. Yeah, this is 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. So like these are like, I'm a teenager, right? And I'm trying to like get her attention. And for me, for the longest time, you know, I think growing up with that, and then even looking back at some of my punishment, some of the spankings, and I didn't realize how abusive my mom was until me and my little brother. So like I said, my mom later on got married, and from that marriage came my stepbrother. My stepbrother has autism, but when I was 16, yes, 16 going on 17, my mom lost her job. And I was working at Six Flags Whitewater in Georgia, in Marietta. And I was a lifeguard there at the time. And during the summer, there's no cap or limit for how many hours you could work as a teenager. So I was working 60, 70 hours a week. Like, I've never not had a job where I worked 30-something hours a week. Even when I was 15 and they had a cap on how many hours a week you could work, I always worked up to the limit, 30, 35 hours. And a lot of that, again, as I've gotten older, I've learned that work ethic also came from a trauma response. It came because I didn't like being at home. And if I was working, I was being productive, I was making money, I didn't have to be at home. I just didn't want to, I didn't feel safe in my home. I didn't feel loved in my home. So I worked. As soon as I could get a permit at 15, I worked. And so when I was 15, 16, or 16 going on 17, my mom lost her job. And so I began to pay all the bills in the house, rent, electricity, phone. And then my aunt, this takes place for like a month or two, and then my aunt hears about it, and she goes, Gabriel, you're a child. You're not supposed to be paying rent. Like, you need to tell your mom you're not gonna pay rent, and she needs to go get a job. Because my mom really wasn't looking for a job. And I recently found out that she's been making my autistic stepbrother use like all of his McDonald's money to pay for rent at their place right now. And it's fucked up because she's already on like subsidized housing, and now you have your autistic son paying, you know, that. And so I'm working on trying to help him move, but there's a whole, when you grow up with a narcissistic and abusive mother, you know, they have a way of pitting siblings against each other, and my mom has done that a lot. Even though me and my little brother are like 15, 16 years apart. But anyway, back when I was 17, 16, 17, I tell my mom, yo, I'm not paying rent next month. We get into a big fight about it. You know, she's mad at me, she's mad at my aunt, you know, and so my mom did this thing where, and I do it now too, it's actually toxic, and I'm trying to grow out of it. My mom does this thing where when she's mad, like when you've defeated her, like with logic, or she just see like she can't force you to do something, my mom will get very sneaky and she'll just go quiet. And that was another thing, like I said, she was very negligent anyway, so a lot of her thing was silent treatment. But then she would get like this quiet, this like eerie quietness about her. And so one day she goes, drop me off at work. I even remember, and my mom was she's like really diabolical. My mom dropped me off at work at Six Flags one morning. I'm 16. Love you. She tells me she loves me. I remember the day, because I thought it was odd she told me that she loved me, because it just wasn't something she said very often. And she says, I love you. I said, I love you too. Go to work 9, 10, 11 hours. My best friend drops me off at the house. I come home, the entire apartment is empty. Or at least I thought the entire apartment was empty. Nothing is in the living room. I'm thinking we got robbed, because I live in the hood. I'm thinking, oh shit, we got robbed, and so even before I can get through the whole house, I immediately call my friend, yo, come back. All our stuff is at the house. And as I'm on the phone saying that, going through the house, I get to my room. All my stuff is in my room. All my stuff is like it hasn't been touched. Nothing in my room has been touched. The couch is gone, the TV's gone, computer's gone, the dining room table is gone, the living room table is gone. Everything out of her room, her bathroom is gone. Everything is gone except the cat litter, and my stuff. And so I'm on the phone with my best friend, and it's funny because when you have traumatic experience, a lot of times you'll block them out. And so they'll come back to you in pieces later on. This isn't a piece of the story that came back to me because I'm 35, so this is going on 20 years. This is a piece of the story that just came back to me a few months ago. I remember being in such denial that my mom had abandoned me, that my mom had just left me there, that it took my best friend at the time, like, telling me, no, Gabe, you didn't get robbed. If all your stuff is there, nobody robbed you. He said, hey, why don't you try calling your mom? And I tried calling my mom. I couldn't get in contact with her. And I'm freaking out. I'm 16 years old. I'm thinking, yo, what happened to my mom? What happened to this? And da-da-da-da. And calling my best friend again. He's driving back. And he's like, Gabe, your mom left. And it makes sense now, because at the time, I would tell people about my mom. And when you grow up in an abusive environment, that's your normal. That's just your normal. You just like, oh, this is just the way it is. Like, but I remember now, like, some of the stories I would tell my relationship about with my mom, with my best friend, and he had two great loving parents. I call his parents mom and dad to this day, because they were the ones who put me in a house after this incident. Me and him ended up living together in their church house, because his dad was a pastor, and they had a house. The church had a house. And so we ended up staying there after this whole ordeal. But I remember him having to convince me that my mom had left and that my mom had abandoned me. And I remember talking to my mom the next day, and I remember her telling me, well, you said you weren't going to pay rent, so I didn't want to get evicted, so I left. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? She said, you said you weren't going to pay rent, so I had to figure something out. I said, so what am I going to do? She said, I don't know. And it was a very brief conversation. And I just remember, like, I'm still processing it to this day, because that's the thing about, and I'm going to get into that right now. That's the thing about having abusive parents, is they leave you with all this trauma, all this damage that you didn't do, but now you got to go heal. You got to go figure it out. And it's a lifetime process. And I think that more people need to share those healing journeys, particularly men. I think men need to get online and talk about this shit, because men need to know, particularly me, because one of my deepest convictions that I've gotten from growing up in that situation is, one, not all moms are good. And two, I hate seeing when little boys, particularly little black boys, are being told they have to be the man of the house. It's bullshit. It is bullshit. That kid is a boy. And one of the reasons why you gotta do your own grieving and do your own healing is because when you have a shitty parent, after you raise yourself, and you can be proud of who you are. And that's one of the things I do want to say to people with shitty parents. No matter how you turned out, bro, or sis, like, you need to be proud of who you are, because you're not supposed to survive that. I talk about it in my manifesto. When we say that everyone deserves love, that's not quite accurate, because deserves implies that you did something to earn it. You don't earn love. When we say everyone deserves love, what we are saying is that it doesn't make sense to exist as a human outside of the rhythm of love. And you're supposed to get that from your mother first. And so when you don't get that, when you aren't made to feel like your existence matters simply because you're that woman's offspring or that man's offspring, it leaves a hole in you. You walk around with a level of shame that other people don't. Like there's a shame to your existence and you don't know why. Like you'll wake up just feeling bad, and you'll question everything you do because you feel shameful for existing. And the reason why you feel shameful for existing is because you grew up with a narcissistic, abusive mother who they didn't love you. They didn't love you. And so now these days comes, and these days remind you of that. These days remind you of what you didn't get, what you didn't receive. And so for the longest, these days would make me really, really bitter. And I didn't like them. I didn't like celebrating them. And it's why I don't like celebrate. And I've grown up not liking celebrating most holidays. One, because it always seemed that it was always money was the excuse of why we couldn't celebrate it. And so I would never get, these holidays would never be fun for me. And so I think on days like this, for people who grew up with narcissistic or abusive mothers, I think on days like this, at some point, as hurt and as much as it's gonna suck, at some point you do have to sit down and face the reality and grieve the fact that for some of us, like, we're never gonna have that happy childhood. It's just not gonna happen. Like, we're not gonna be able to go back, and you need to let yourself cry about that. You need to let yourself grieve that, and it'll come in different moments. It won't be like one big crying session. It may be throughout your life, and I still have moments where it's just like, man, I'm sad that me and my mom don't have that relationship. And I've tried to reach out, but it's one of these things where it's like, particularly that one experience I just described to you guys, we tried to talk about that experience last year. She won't even acknowledge that it happened. And so it's one of these things where it's, from her perspective, it's like, well, I told you I was going to move and you said you didn't want to come. I was like, I was 16. What do you mean I told you I didn't want to? What options did I have? You were my mother. I would have went. It wasn't like she tried to make it seem like I made the independent decision. And I've seen mothers do that. I've seen mothers treat their children like they're adults. And it's like, no, I was a child. I didn't have a choice in that situation. You didn't give me a choice. You abandoned me. And so I think that at some point, for those of us who grew up with abusive and narcissistic mothers, I think it's at some point you do have to take a step back and you have to grieve. And you have to accept, like, man, I wasn't loved, and that sucks. And the reason why and just that awareness alone is going to help you grow so much, because it's helped me recognize where I've not, in the past with other partners, other relationships, it's like I didn't know how to receive love because it's foreign to me. I didn't know what it was like to just, somebody loves you because you exist. That wasn't a feeling that I felt. And then I grew up in a cult too. I was in a cult for 13 years. And so that's all love bombing and fake love. And so it really wasn't until like I met the woman who I'm going to pick up this stuff for now, where like I met someone who loved me simply because I existed, not because of what I did, not because of what I said. And that was weird at first. And it was because of that hole that my mother left. And so a lot of people will try to sit here and gaslight you and tell you like, oh, you got to forgive your mother. Listen, you can't forgive a person who doesn't acknowledge, who you are, right? Like, I can only forgive what you're what you are willing to accept that you did. If you aren't willing to accept, like, there's nothing to forgive, right? I can't forgive if there's no apology. I can't forgive if there's no, like, And so a lot of times people will, on these days, I think if you grew up with an abusive or narcissistic mother, like, forgive. Yes, you need to forgive, but that will look differently. One of the other things that I actually did want to talk about a lot, and I'll try to wrap this up here soon, but I think the other thing when it comes to forgiveness and it comes to these type of days when you've had not so good mothers, bad people don't respond to your goodwill. Bad people don't respond to your good heart. Bad people respond to consequence. And so I've told my mother straight up, you're not going to be a part of your granddaughter's lives. Like, your path to your grandchildren is through me. And it's not about holding these people back to punish her. It's about protecting my offspring. That's what it's about. And I would love for my children to get to know my mother, but she's made no effort. All the effort would have to be made by them. I don't want them to have that type of relationship with an adult figure like that, where they have to be the adult, where they have to do all the initiating. She's the grandmother. She's supposed to fly out here. She's supposed to help with the children. She's supposed to offer babysitting time. She's supposed to want to be involved in their lives. And she's not made that effort. And so sometimes she'll call and she'll ask about them. And I said, just come see them. Well, I don't have any money. And it's like, well, and I tell her, it's like, listen, I got a family of 5. It's just you. You could get here a couple $100. You want us to spend thousands of dollars. Well, you got more money in this. It's like, all right. It's like, but you're just not going to be a part of if you're not going to make the effort. My daughters are not going out of the way to spend time with someone who doesn't. And that's for their protection, because I know how exhausting, how draining that relationship is. And that person hasn't changed. And a lot of people will tell you, well, oh, maybe, that relationship will heal and this and that. Maybe, possibly. But at the same time, that is applying a narrative and a hope to a reality that I don't have evidence for. There's no evidence that these people will change. And so going back to my point about bad people only respond to consequence. I think there is a path forward for forgiveness, and a path forward for healing with relationships with narcissistic and abusive mothers. But from what I've seen, because I've had friends and partners who've been in similar situations, the mother is making an effort. You will not be able to have that relationship if the other person doesn't make the effort. And you will just end up seeking, and you'll keep yourself in that little child phase of that parentized child who's always trying to get this person's approval while not realizing, like, this person that's them. They're never going to be who you want them to be, at least not this way. And if they are going to be something, if they're going to be something different, it's going to be because they choose to. And it's not going to be until they choose to. And so it's one of these things where days like this, I think it's good to take a step back. I think it's good to just, hey, just heal, acknowledge, and it's fine. I think, as I said, be proud of I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of the man I've raised myself to be. And now that I know that I can be a good parent because I have 3 daughters of my own, I'm now providing space for the little boy in me to heal, to grieve, to acknowledge him, to acknowledge, to say he was right about things, to say how proud I am of him because, he didn't get that. That little boy, little Gabe, did not get told, the adult, that the parent that was in his life did not say that they were proud of him enough. And so I got to go back and do that. And I would love to not have to do that. But if I want to heal, if I want to be a better man today, I got to go acknowledge that stuff. I got to be able to actually heal when I got to do that work. I can't be mad that my mom ain't healed, my mom ain't did this, my mom ain't did that, if I'm not willing to do it myself. So, that's just what I want to say to the people who grew up with abusive and narcissistic parents. I know these days can be bring up a lot of feelings. You're not alone. But listen, be proud of yourself. If you survived a narcissistic or abusive mother, today is your day. Celebrate that. Celebrate the person you've become. And know you're not alone, and know that, you know, what happened to you wasn't right. That needs to be acknowledged. It wasn't right. You did not deserve to go through that. You were not owed that. Your existence is not wrong. Your existence is not bad. I'm sorry you went through that. But what's beautiful is every time I see my daughters just be happy in our home, it lets me know that I have healed and I have done a good job and I overcame that situation. So go create something that brings you joy, brings you happiness, and just know that even from something as dark or as painful as your childhood, something amazing can happen. All right? Love you guys. Bye.